Phil Blankenship is civil engineer and owner of Blankenship Asphalt Tech and Training, where he is an asphalt mixtures and pavement specialist. He previously worked with Surface Tech, LLC, SNME, and BASF. Handling and Laydown by Phil Blankenship.
First off, thank you for allowing me to present today. So coming to you from Richmond, Kentucky, where we love our springs in Kentucky. Finished up with the Kentucky Derby a few weeks ago, so here we are today and enjoying some beautiful weather here. And there's two seasons we always have, right? And we joke about in the world that we live in. And one is winter and the other one is construction. So we love construction season. Thank you to the Foundation and National Pavement Preservation Group for hosting this today. My topic, of course, is emulsion handling and laydown. Andrew, I heard you well as your challenge to me there, and thank you, Andrew. Enjoyed working with Andrew many years ago as we worked together at the Coke Materials Company. So I've had the opportunity to actually work at the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet in Kentucky, where I used to specify asphalt liquid, asphalt binder, and emulsions, including the testing and so on, and ran that laboratory. I then moved to Coke, where I had to live with those specifications. Worked at Asphalt Institute, where we researched them, and now I'm a consultant. And here I am, right back trying to figure out how to use them. So it's sort of fun being on all sides of this business and looking back in. So I look forward to bringing some things to you today, and hopefully a little different perspective. I am not, and absolutely am not, an emulsion expert, but what I am is an engineer who has used these before, and I hope to bring that perspective to you. I'll tell you, my first thing is on my phone, I keep a quick list of these emulsion suppliers, and I'll give them a call. The topic that I did not like in college was chemistry. And here, when I went to Coke, I ended up working for a chemist and being around chemists, and enjoy those peer relationships that you have, and reach out to them. They know a lot about this as engineers know a lot about building things, or other folks may know a lot about managing. So we're going to look at a general overview today. Then we're going to hit the do's and don'ts. We're just going to talk in this 20-minute segment. We're going to talk very basically about spray application and slurry, two of the main applications that what we use today. Not really going to try to get into CIR today, and then just a general slide on information sources. I want to thank BASF for pictures and assistance on this presentation. I'm true to my colors on that. I tell you, I go to experts, and there's plenty emulsion suppliers out there. I go to my friends and my experts to understand how to do these things. As you've already heard, in general construction applications, from asphalt modification, bridge decking, pavement markings, foam products, mortar, special coating, sealing materials, construction adhesives, emulsions are all around us. When I was growing up, it was all about Kodak, right? Kodak film that had to be put in emulsion solutions. Paints, we hear so much about paints being an emulsion, and I really liken everything we do to paint, because paint doesn't dry, it cures also. I like more the fun ones that's brought out that you hear about, whether it's butter or mayonnaise or things like that. The emulsions are all around us, and we just don't necessarily call them that. Just like pre-COVID, a lot of folks didn't understand what PPE was. Boy, they do now. When I look at asphalt applications, I think of things, and you've heard a lot of this already. And so again, to all the folks who are on today, I thoroughly enjoyed being on the tail end of this as I'm getting there and getting ready to hear, as you heard Chris Luber start off, and getting to hear all the different functions of this. And again, to the folks at the Pavement Preservation Group, excellent job on putting this together. Whether I look at the HMA overlay and the tack that's under it, a porous asphalt mix where I use the emulsion to fill it from the bottom. Maybe I'm looking at chip seal emulsions, as you see in the lower left-hand corner. Over on the far right, you see microsurfacing application. Or at the bottom, we look at a bond coat. Oh, what happened there? Well, we got a big red X through that one. All too often, we see this type of work, and we're going to talk about that and why that happens, and things that we've done a little bit today to try to work around that. As an overview, again, this process is dictated. The emulsion is dictated by application, and understanding from my sampling to the testing that's got to go through, but even the type of emulsion and what it's got to do, it's all by application. Keeping in mind that it's all about surface area. If I'm dealing with a chip seal, where I'm dealing with one size rock, I need something that's going to set pretty rapidly, in my opinion, because I don't have a lot of reactivity. If I go to something that has a lot of fines in it, now I'm going to need something that's going to set a little bit slower, because my emulsion will react to those fines, and it speeds up the process. You've heard about, how emulsions will react in different ways. All that being said, there's things that can speed it up and slow it down, but when the water's gone, the absolute process is done. And we call that, a lot of times we're looking at tack just breaking, or when the emulsion cures. Emulsions, to me, are one of the most misunderstood products in the market. Just like if I'm in an asphalt laboratory, people say, well, what's your entry-level job? Well, in a mixture lab, it's shaking rock, and it's like, oh, I don't want to do that. In a binder lab, sometimes the entry-level job could be working on the emulsion side. And we tend to put emulsions over in this box, or at least I did at the cabinet or the DOT, and we put it in this box that it's this almost a throwaway product. And it's sort of the low man on the totem pole gets it, because we always associated the smells and things like that with it. And they're not toxic, it's just a smell, right, that goes with it. Now that's gone away today in so much of the evaporation and different ways we test today. I'm here to tell you that it's a very misunderstood product. Emulsions are not, absolutely not, a throwaway product. Emulsions are a complex blend of asphalt, water, and soap that allows us to use asphalt in an outside or ambient temperature in what I refer to more as a heatless condition. I know we're talking about we've got to keep the emulsions warm and so on, but we're not dealing with temperatures of 300 degrees, 250 degrees, and so on. We're dealing with much lower temperatures. Emulsions are a complicated product, and that's why I think they're so misunderstood. As engineers, we want to go and we want to specify and we want to put everything in our engineering world, but when we get to the emulsion, we just don't understand it, and it frustrates engineers to no end when we have to rely on a manufacturer. Most agency folks are engineers who are trying to specify these products. They are not chemists. I am not a chemist, and we have to rely on the chemist. And these are just good areas where we need to work together. No different than a DOT managing a major asset needs to work with somebody who has a good business head, MBA head, to understand how to manage assets. Engineers are trained through schooling to build. We're not trained to be chemists. So listen to the manufacturer. The other thing that the manufacturer will tell you is application, application, application. Whether you're dealing with a tack or a bond coat, a slurry seal, microsurfacing, CIR, it's all different. And again, water can release quickly in a slurry, but more time may be needed in a thicker application, or where we have to be able. It depends on the reaction, depends on the reactivity that goes on. Environment is another one that can really frustrate an engineer. Seen projects that go down in one area of the U.S. and so many of my peers would say, boy, it worked here, let's go here. Now we go down to Houston. Houston could be a really humid, as we know, environment. And all of a sudden, what worked in Colorado doesn't work in Houston. Why is that? It could be the time of year. It can be the temperature. Probably has a lot to do with humidity. Now, how about elevation? What happens when you take a truckload of emulsion over the Sierra Nevadas or over the Rocky Mountains? It will absolutely change, one, because of the transport, and the agitation that goes on, moving it around and sloshing it on those curves, but the pressure. There's so many things that can happen to it. I remember at Coke, one thing I learned very quickly is don't assume that the asphalt that you had in the fall and you reheat it in the springtime and you take that same asphalt and go to make an emulsion out of it. Don't expect it to work the same. It absolutely can throw you for a loop on that one. Day and night makes a difference with the asphalt emulsions, again, depending on application, and tunnels. What works outside may not work well in a tunnel. These are all things that we've learned. So again, biggest thing there is listen to the guidance from the manufacturer. Application, application, application. As an engineer, I would tell you what 3 things are most important when I design a pavement. It's water, water, water. What I'm telling you with something that's got water in it, such as an asphalt emulsion, it's application, application, application. The design is another piece of that application. The aggregate type, cationic versus anionic, and overall compatibility. Check these things in the laboratory before you ever take it to the field. Again, emulsions are delicate, is my term that I like to use, and need to be treated as such. Not that we should shy away from them, but again, the more we understand how to use them, the greater that we can use these products and not just think of it as some road oil, as we tend to call it. Handling do's and don'ts. Again, thank you to the folks over at Heartland and then General Industry for these. Some of these I can work on, and a lot of these I have to use, and I remember through the years. So my number 1 is consult AEMA. Absolutely. You want to look at the the emulsion member company or the additional emulsion information and guidance. They have so much information on their website. Do not hesitate to go up there and look and ask those questions. I believe Chris Luber's mentioned this first off. Do's, you can dilute emulsions by adding the warm water to the emulsion. One thing I would, and there's some don'ts that's going to come along with this. Be careful about diluting these emulsions. Keep track of what you're doing. I know I've gotten out to jobs before, and the resid that's left on the pavement after a contractor has diluted it once and diluted it again and diluted it even a 3rd time. You know, it's like what I used to joke that I grew up very poor in Eastern Kentucky, and we used to joke about my mother. She would dilute the Kool-Aid and call it Kool-Aid Light. In this case, diluting your emulsion to the point of where there's very little asphalt left in it does not do good. Why do we even dilute it? Well, we're trying to help with the sprayability or the spread of that emulsion over the roadway. You absolutely want to check compatibility of water and emulsion. Do it in a flask, or I love the other comment, put it in a Gatorade bottle, right? Keep hydrated out there. Throw it in a Gatorade bottle or something. Check it. Understand the compatibility of the water and the emulsion in the flask before you run and do it on a whole load and cause something bad to go wrong. The inlet and return lines near the bottom of the tank, you do not want to put those up at the top. And again, we're going to talk about the type of tank here in just a moment, but you want to put those near the bottom of the tank because we want to prevent the foaming process from happening as we begin to circulate the product. Draining tanks, you do not want a hill of product. Now this goes whether you're dealing with liquid asphalt or even emulsion. The most important thing, and this is a safety factor, safety first on this one, do not mix hot asphalt and emulsion. Very, very explosive, very dangerous. Not explosive to the point of, but explosive of throwing a very hot substance in water. And you'll expand that water and you create this pressure bomb. You know, I've known of companies, and it happens even by accident. You bring an emulsion tanker in, right? You ask the guy, you know, he verifies, oh no, I've not had any, I've only been hauling hot oil today. And you go and put that in the tanker. If something bad doesn't have there, the lid goes on it, out to the road he goes, the top blows off, and you just bought about 10 paint jobs. Make sure, one, that you're not mixing any hot substance in there, but more importantly, in this case, what we're talking about here is do not try to mix emulsions. Drain it to no measurable quantity before adding an emulsion. Emulsions, again, with the same designation, can even be different in performance. So if I'm dealing with an SS1H or CRS or whatever, okay, first off, I don't want to mix the 2 types. But even if I'm dealing with an SS1H from one guy and an SS1H from another guy, they can be different, and just respect that. Again, when in doubt, talk to the manufacturer. Provide adequate ventilation. As you begin to heat these, again, it's been said over and over. One, you do not want to overheat it because you don't want to destroy your emulsion. 140 to me was always the magic number. As you begin to heat it, we don't need to do anything to cause that emulsion to continue to break quickly and cause it to break down. On your pumps, very important. Make sure as you do this that you want to have the right clearance on your pumps. to prevent them from binding or breaking the emulsion. Again, a pump is generating heat, imparting a lot of energy into that product. As you've heard it already mentioned, we want to circulate. We want to be gentle with the product. Clearing those valves and lines of an emulsion. If you're going to, if as we go to think about long-term storage, I want to make sure that my pumps and everything is clear of the emulsion, because any water or anything, during freezing weather is going to be damaging to your pumps. Drain pumps, remove the plugs when not in service. Warm pump casings. And these are some very practical things trying to leave you here to ease the startup. No different if I'm using hot asphalt, right? As I begin to restart things, warm things back up. Emulsions, while we lose a lot of horizontal tanks, the best, even for emulsions or for hot asphalt, it's always best to use vertical tanks and not horizontal. And in this case, it's less of a surface, and that way we don't have excessive skin formation or that film or skin that forms on the top. Gently, and the term here is gently, circulate emulsions when heating or after prolonged storage, not aggressively, but gently. A few don't, and we've already talked about these in sort of the one way, but let's talk about them now on the don't side. The tight clearance, again, as we get our pumps and we have such a tight clearance, again, we don't want to cause a seizing issue. We do not want to leave the emulsions in line during the freezing weather or hold the emulsion in the lines for extended periods. Making sure that we understand, we do not want to apply severe heat to pump casings. If you apply a lot of heat to those casings, what can happen? Well, one, you can damage it, right? You could damage your pump, but also you can cause your emulsion to break quicker than what you want, and now we're causing something to seize, and we don't want that. Again, we don't want to store emulsion in a horizontal tank. Again, I think of my bottle of water here. If I turn it on side, I have a lot of surface area now on the top as compared to what I have if I put it in a vertical tank. So where possible, again, store the emulsion in a horizontal tank. We talked about circulating earlier. One of the do's is to do it gently. Well, doing it excessively, and we can lose viscosity when pumped over and over and over. Earlier, Andrew was talking about the plates and how the plates go together. And the viscosity, right, is controlled by those plates and how those plates work together and getting particle size and so on. And things I remember very specifically for those who taught me a lot about emulsions. All of that work and the size and the spacing on the plates goes into making that emulsion. We don't want to get it on the back end and all of a sudden destroy what's been made by just doing something by circulating it excessively. Again, circulate it, pump it gently. We do not want to dilute a rapid setting emulsion with water. Never add, just don't do that, right? Dilute emulsions with the non-potable water or cold water. Let's talk about that. So I go get water out of a creek, maybe around where I live, or you go get it out of a dirty pit somewhere. And now we have water that didn't come from a fire hydrant or somewhere like that. It came from something that's non-potable, right? So what ends up happening then when I dilute it with non-potable water? I can contaminate my emulsion first off, and I could cause it to do things I don't want it to do. Again, I don't want to do anything that messes up the chemistry that's been created for me. I do not want to pump the emulsion into open air or have an inlet line near the top of the tank. Again, I'm trying to keep the film down. I don't want my emulsion to set prematurely. And then, of course, outlet lines, I do not want to place those in the mid tank. Again, I want my outlet lines toward the bottom. Again, all that to prevent foaming. We talked about earlier already about what happens if I mix one emulsion and another emulsion. If I do that, again, especially cationic and anionic, two very different emulsions can coagulate and mix. But even emulsions, again, warn you on this one, from the same manufacturer, you get it a month later, check with your manufacturer to make it sure it's identical if you've got a half tank and you're adding it to it, so that you don't get into a compatibility issue. When in doubt, again, use your flask. Use something and mix it in a bucket before you ever put it into a larger tank. A bucket, a flask, Gatorade bottle is my favorite. Don't subject emulsion to the open air or let it be near the open air or above it to open flame. Oxidants, do not heat the emulsion above 190. that number may even lower by some manufacturers. 190 is sort of the higher number that I've seen. We don't want it to break quickly, but we don't want it to break down, or we don't want it to also do any premature aging. I'm going to switch now to the application piece. It's very generic. All too often as an engineer, gone out on projects, and I'm focusing here on a bond course or a TAC course, we do not see what's on the left, we see what's on the right. As an engineer, it is so important that we have fully bonded layers. We assume fully bonded layers when we do our pavement designs. We need something that is done well. Now, while we have a thumbs down on the one on the right, I can tell you that would be a great TAC job or a bond job to what I've seen. And it gets very difficult when you have a milled job versus a job where you have a milled surface where you have something that's smooth. Personally, I would rather see a contractor go through and try to run a calibration and try to do it right. If anything, when I've tried to ask for something done better, and you look on the right here, you see the area at the bottom of the picture where it looks like they started out where it's very dark, and then they sped up and the truck didn't calibrate with it. And then now if I go to put a mixture over that, what's going to happen is you may get some ponding in one area and a little bubble that comes up through. Now, I have never seen that do anything other than just be a fat spot on the surface, which is not always what you want to see, but I've never seen it be detrimental other than what you could use a scraper and remove it with. Concerning the application, the better that we can do and spread the emulsion, the better assumptions that we can have on our pavement design that the structure can do what it's supposed to do. No different than the analogy where you take 4 or 5 2x4s and put somebody on them and let them stand, as compared to now take those 2x4s and run a bolt through them or glue them or laminate them and now put somebody up there. You're eliminating the sliding action that would go on, and your structure's better. The other thing that happens, and I did not put a picture in this one, if I get a very poor application, or sometimes if my tack my asphalt is way too stiff in my tack and I get a freezing condition, what can happen is I end up with delamination, or I end up with what I call slippage cracks. And that's where, especially you see it in the downhill or intersection areas where the trucks will begin to hit their brakes, and you see these crescent shaped cracks begin to appear, or crescent or like a shoving begin to appear and rumbling as you go into the intersection. That is all preventable by getting good bonding between the layers. And it starts right here on this picture in trying to do it right with the proper spraying versus very uneven areas. I guess I would add a third picture that's not in here, and very truthful on this one, that if you can't tell the emulsion or the tack has been sprayed, then you have a very serious issue, and you need to go back and respray. Don't ever, as you're an inspector watching this, don't ever hesitate to go back and have them spray. A lot of times emulsions in these applications are incidentals, and they're not even a pay item. So make sure that we get that proper and put down correctly. If I look at a nice fog seal application here, this is a fog going over top of a chip seal. You see such an even coat as you look at this, and this is the exact way to do it. There's a big difference between that calibrated distributor that you're looking there at a very high level piece of equipment and what we would call a tack truck here on the right. Again, we learn a lot from our mistakes as we do our successes with that. These were just pictures of good projects. I was really through with the application piece. This was a slide I'll give to you here on information, just on where I use as far as good sources of information. ISSA, EMA, and Asphalt Institute, and of course the various emulsion manufacturers. With that, I am done, and turn it back over to you.
My name is Shelley, and I'm here today to share everything I know about emulsion sampling and testing that will fit into 20 minutes or less. My name is Shelley, and I'm here today to share everything I know about emulsion sampling and testing that will fit into 20 minutes or less.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.